Warning: this show contains spoilers.
We're calling it the Idiot Hour?
Beluska, dude, I'll stay right here and play clarinet.
We'll get into all that in a future episode.
Mike's coming up. Be better.
I'm trying to be better.
Yeah, be better by drinking in all your shows equally.
If
Haha.
I did that, Friday would be a lot more fun. Because we do a show at 8 a.m.
That's true.
Hey,
We do
hello.
do a show at 8 a.m.
Hey!
Morning
Hello!
thoughts.
I always forget to share it when it's not us. Like,
It's us.
share it when it goes live. But at the same time, Josh doesn't do a good enough job telling us.
Oh,
That's fine. All
that's
right.
fun.
My caption is, we are talking about music and Josh knows nothing about music. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Idiot Hour. Boy, did you see the video we posted today?
Yes, I did. I loved it.
We need to do a better job, me and you.
I feel like it's hard being in sync.
I was changing
via
the
Zoom.
pace, I believe. I'm not blaming you at all. I need to do better.
Okay, as long as you think you need to do better, that's fine.
No, I know I need to do better.
Appreciate you.
You know who wasn't good?
Me.
This guy. Yeah, that guy.
This guy.
Yeah,
That
he's
guy.
up and to the left of you.
Oh, he's up and to the left of me.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
you're alone at the bottom of the cubicle today. What is up,
Hey,
boys?
going on, fellers?
I literally just finished this show before I hit go live. Like, doing all the graphics and writing it and the whole 9 yards. So hopefully it's good. If it sucks, I'm sorry. And I'm
I like
sorry
when Josh brags about not doing.
not doing a good job. Hey,
my
I
favorite
may have
too.
fucked this whole thing up.
Whatever.
Also, I'm sorry
Fuck
we
this
can't play any of the music, but we'll get nailed for copyright infringement.
I'll just play it on my phone. Hold on.
I mean, you could do that, but most of
But
it you
you're
have to play
still-
Yeah, I got you.
backwards. Okay.
The Beatles.
You gotta
All
play
right.
it backwards. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Means
Just do that, Derek. Just sing a little bit.
lovely Rita sucked my dick and I crashed my car. That's what it means.
Yeah, I have a question to start this all off with.
Whew.
Yes, let's hear it.
Are the Beatles?
The greatest band of all time.
Well, that's kind of my question.
I figured.
Are they like are they actually on the pedestal they deserve to be, or was it because they changed so much about music and they were like superstars before superstars?
Man,
Because they
that's a
were
good
like kind of
question.
the first entertainment, maybe not the first, but you know what I mean.
Boy?
Whew, I think it has a lot to do with the time.
Yeah.
Yes, they definitely changed a lot musically, and you got to think about like when. Well, I think what was crazy is just the fact that when they came to the U.S. for the first time.
Yeah.
I think just like all the hype behind them before they came, and then when they came here, how crazy that was.
Yeah.
Well, and then to quit touring, they're like, no, we're done. We're done forever. We're going to release only studio albums and get even bigger somehow? That's crazy.
And I
At
think
that time, like at a
Right.
time when, like, yeah, maybe you could do that today,
yeah.
like with that mindset, but like it's hard to, especially with the like the amount of money that you can make even off of streaming. Like it's not. It'd be harder, I think, to not tour and get bigger.
Well, and it says a lot to them as well that they have, outside of the Beatles, some of the largest names in music history as well.
Right. It's
Like,
not
they're
just
not-
the Beatles. It's John
Yeah.
Lennon and Paul McCartney and George Harrison
And Ringo.
Ringo.
and Ringo.
But it's funny because like you hear other bands where it's just the lead guy, it's just the lead singer, it's this person. Like there are some other bands that are beautifully constructed out of just musical genius, but I think
Zeppelins.
yeah. Well, I think that's why I have the Beatles in such high regard is that they
Right.
didn't do stuff. So
Yeah, if anything, that's where the Stones kind of lack
Yeah.
in comparison. Is that individually, maybe only Keith Richards kind of holds up.
Yeah, I don't think the Stones even come close.
Really?
Okay.
Not even
Because
close.
they were like,
I know they were, but if
Okay.
we're talking then, maybe if we're talking now, where they stand now,
I think it's fair.
I don't think it's even close.
Are we
I-
doing a draft tonight, Josh?
No. This whole thing is going to take the entire show.
I think that we could pump out a 5-round best band of all time.
Best band of all time.
Josh is worried. He's just
He's
saying
like,
that 'cause
oh
he didn't
man, now
make
he's
the
got to.
draft
He's like, now I
setting.
got to build a card.
I can't because this entire show is going to be me telling you guys a story. So
You're
it's not
so
even
ass
like
at
I can be
storytelling.
doing shit on the side.
You're so bad at storytelling.
What makes you think that I'm bad at storytelling?
The fact that you're bad at storytelling.
You're full of shit. It is literally my profession.
Not what? If this was
A
a
professional
video,
storyteller.
if this was a
Yes.
video, young Deke inside the brain would be.
You know who's a good
Josh,
storyteller?
if you were delivering me a movie, I'd be
Dr.
so
Seuss.
excited.
This is like a script.
Yeah, if you were delivering me like the visual part of the movie, all there.
All right, well, how about you shut your mouth, open a beer, and get ready to be told a great fucking story?
I'd like to
Great
know what
tale.
picture Boyd has behind him first.
Oh, okay.
This is a
That was a good intro, Josh.
beautiful moonlit beach scene
Thank you, Chef.
done by Chef Dan McGee.
Big fan of Chef Dan.
Big chef. They're all over. Maybe I'll take you on a tour at the end.
I would love an art gallery.
Shout out! I got my hoodie.
Hey, look at you.
Ooh.
I'd be like it.
I would like to say that Josh isn't wearing any Thoughts from the Bench gear right now. So,
No, I'm not.
and we are. So, and I'm usually the odd one out
I'm wearing
because I
two
didn't
Thoughts
because
from
I
the
didn't
Bench.
have it. Look at that! Ooh, that's cool. 4th of
Thank you.
July. Or
That
is
was our
just
4th of
me?
July line last year that I'm going to redrop this year.
Look at this guy. He had to go and get the hoodie.
Josh, you can't wear that one. I'm wearing gray.
Pathetic. Yeah, where's the black one, Josh?
This is insane.
This is you can't
Hey,
wear
Josh,
that.
we're going to need you to change. I'm wearing gray today.
Yeah, he's wearing gray.
All right, let's get the show on the road.
All right. Since Josh has to tell the story and he's going upstairs, I
Yeah,
love it.
no, it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I mean, we want the white, black, gray. We want a good.
How much you bet he comes down in a white hoodie? Should I go change?
Oh my God.
No, I won't. I can't.
It'd be so good though. It would be great.
So, what are the big Beatles conspiracy theories that you know of before we dive into this? Because I only know that there's the conspiracy theory that one of them died.
Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh,
Yes.
we're kind of all wearing hoodies and sweatshirts today.
Yeah, it's kind of like a.
I'm kidding.
We're kidding.
That was a stupid joke.
Oh my God, no, he didn't. We didn't get to him before he took the headphones off.
I did. No, he's making a point out of it.
You think?
I know that I got to him. I wonder if they're okay. What's up, Flan?
What up, Flan?
Hey, everybody. So, Boyd, tell us your favorite part about that sweatshirt. Actually,
Ooh, the stitch. That stitch is
nice, right?
Ooh wee. Ooh wee. Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. Look at this guy. We were joking. You know we were joking, but you had to go out of your way.
Are you ready?
Got a breath.
Woo.
What is exercising?
Wow.
Woo! Be like Yammer Yager in the 90s,
Hey.
just climbing steps.
Josh.
Yeah.
Oh.
The hat? Is it the hat? Is it glasses? Do I need to put contacts
I
in?
was
The hat definitely
All
does
right.
not match.
Story time.
All right.
Listen up. Here's a story.
Before we begin, I'd like to thank Polyphonics and Quentin Reviews for their information on this subject.
I thought we had sponsors for some reason.
Yeah, no free ads. Josh.
Sit for the working man. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen,
Ladies and gents.
tonight's episode of the Idiot Hour will chronicle the mysterious surroundings of the biggest rock band to ever walk the earth. Some of what you are about to hear is true. Some is rumor. Other is speculation. We will cross the topics of murder, the occult, and religion. All of it has been strung together in story format for your entertainment. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the show.
There's been a murder.
I I enjoy any time that the storyteller has to tell you, here comes the story. Favorite part of the story.
It really gets me going.
Today is November 9th.
When did you shave? Did you shave
1966.
today? Josh, sorry, before you get into it. Did you shave today?
There's no drama on this show whatsoever, bro.
There's gonna be.
Baby face,
I just have to know about your face.
baby face. Somewhat
Alright,
of a
alright,
beard,
alright.
somewhat of a beard, somewhat of a beard, somewhat of a beard. Really good beard, really good beard, really good beard, really good beard. We have beards, we have beards. All right.
He's tendering his resignation. You can't resign as an intern.
It's too hot.
All right.
Interns can't resign.
I know. All right.
No,
Ready?
Here we go. November 6th. November 9th. 6th. I didn't
Warning.
see what it said.
It's
All right.
1966.
66. Great year.
November 9th, 1966. The car of one Paul McCartney has been in an accident. 2 passengers were in the car, a woman wearing a blue dress named Rita, and the driver, Paul McCartney. Rita escapes with her life, but Paul is not so lucky. The founding member of the biggest band in the world is dead. Immediately, the Beatles stopped touring. Any further music would be released from the studio. Their next album, Sgt. Pepper's and the Lonely Hearts Club Band, was released. The band began to wear costumes, grew out their facial hair, and adopted a new sound. The world would still be in the heat of Beatlemania. They would accept the changes as artistic, not realizing the cover-up of the death of Paul McCartney. You can see the change in presentation and sound was to help cover up the addition of William Campbell, better known as Billy Shears, the winner of the Paul McCartney Lookalike Contest. Billy Shears was a Canadian resident who went missing in 1966. After being recruited, he underwent plastic surgery to look more like Paul McCartney. The Beatles spent the year training Billy Shears to imitate Paul. He nailed the voice, he could sing well enough, but his total lack of ability to play the guitar and be right-handed were dead giveaways. They would need to be only filmed and photographed in situations they can control. Later, fans would notice some differences. Let me pull up these differences.
Here come the differences.
A dramatic change in height, the earlobes being completely different, and most importantly, the change in eye color.
Oh shit! That's why they didn't tour.
Over the remaining 6 albums, the Beatles would make subtle nods to the death of their band member, a way for them to deal with the death and possibly grief, to deal with the grief and possibly guilt of Paul's death. The hints would come in many forms. The album cover of the 1967 release, Sgt. Pepper and the Lonely Hearts Club Band, is riddled with clues. So here's all of your clues.
My big question, Josh, which
Sure.
I don't know if you're going back into it or whatever it is. So he couldn't play the guitar. He was going opposite hand, and he could still. I don't know. The singing thing is where that's the only like.
So the Beatles, in the new form, right? There's a lot more things being layered on top of it. It's much more of a produced sound, right? So you have the ability in studio, even at that time, to manipulate voice more so than what they used to play, which was all 4 of them standing in a room just playing instruments together, and what they recorded is what they recorded.
Interesting.
So the actual like production value of it allows them to hide maybe some of the inconsistencies in the voice. Let's go back into the album cover. First off, the cover shows a funeral scene. Upon further look, more symbols will stand out. Famous people are coming to mourn the loss of an icon. One of them is that there's a left-handed guitar in the flower bed. Okay, so we know Paul's left-handed. Secondly, the members themselves are very odd. Paul is the only one facing the camera, as the other three are turned inwards, signifying them as pallbearers. Also note that the instruments, Paul is the only one with a black instrument. Above Paul is a right hand, which in Eastern cultures is the symbol of death. We know that George and John both practiced Hindu and Buddhism. The infamous drum kit. When a mirror is placed on the drum kit, it reads the number 1, and then it spells out 1, the Roman numeral 9, and the words, he died. That would be 11/9, the date of Paul's death. Let me jump one more. If you're looking for a date in which, or a time in which Paul was dead, if you turn over to the backside of the album, we see something that had never been done before, and that is lyrics being printed on the back of an album. It's the first time in history. And if you look carefully, George is pointing to Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock, before the day began.
What up, Maddie?
That's when Paul McCartney died.
And if you notice on the back that Paul is the only one facing backwards.
Right.
Another widespread theory that that was a hint that he had. That this whole album cover was their homage to him after he died.
So, and Josh,
Sure.
are you going to be getting into who did all of this?
Mhm.
All right, I'll keep my questions.
I mean, jump in when you want. It's totally,
Hop
whatever.
on in.
I want to hear who the likely list of candidates.
I won't even go likely list. I'll tell you exactly who killed him. So,
Well, I want to know who killed him and whose idea all this album stuff was.
Okay.
So both, but we'll discuss.
so the final piece I would like to draw your attention to is ALEISTER CROWLEY in the upper left-hand corner, the founding father of modern Satanism.
My guy.
Wouldn't that be
too.
Satan?
No.
No, the practice of worshiping Satan.
Oh,
Stupid.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't do that on your own.
Like Joseph Smith is the,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right, so you see this is significant because on December 27th, 1960, the Beatles played a show at the Town Hall Ballroom. The band was being booked regularly throughout Liverpool, but they weren't gaining much crowd reaction. That is until that night, the crowd famously stormed the stage to the sound of screaming girls. You see, in Liverpool, there's a famous bridge on Rose Lane. That it is one of the few places...
Road.
Not Abbey Road.
shit.
Abbey Road is in London. It is one of the few places on earth where a man can sell his soul to the devil for fortune and fame. The night before the Town Hall Ballroom show, John Lennon did just that. He asked the devil to be more famous than Elvis. The devil granted him his wish, saying, "You have 20 years of fame, and then I will collect your soul." Aleister Crowley's image on the album cover signifies John's deal with the devil and the great lengths that drove him to keep his fame. Other clues to Paul's death come in song form, like the song...
I've never heard that particular tidbit right there.
So, at one point in time, they were doing a interview, and offhandedly, the reporter goes, "You guys are bigger than Elvis." And he goes, "Yeah, I sold my soul to the devil for it." John Lennon said that. Other clues... Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying neat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Other clues to Paul's death come in lyrics of songs, like A Day in the Life. John sings, "He blew his mind out in the car. He didn't notice the light had changed. A crowd of people stood and stared. They had seen his face before." Sgt. Pepper's album also draws attention to Paul's passenger that day, Rita. It is believed that Rita was Paul's mistress. The song describes the beginning of their relationship and ultimately how Paul nearly ended her life. The lyric, "When it's dark, I tow your heart away." More clues were to come on the next album, The Magical Mystery Tour. The album art and corresponding visuals for the album saw the band don costumes, fearing the public would catch on to fake Paul. However, John would cleverly introduce a character of the Walrus, based off of Lewis Carroll's character, most known for being the imposter. This was John's way of pointing out the imposter in the group. The Walrus is featured on the cover in the album cover in a crucifix pose, seemingly referencing that Paul may have been sacrificed, but we'll get to more on that later. Also on the album, the Strawberry Fields Forever, the song Strawberry Fields Forever. After Paul's death, part of the cover-up was burying Paul in an unmarked grave in the abandoned cemetery called Strawberry Fields in Liverpool. The cemetery was just minutes from Paul's childhood home. John leaves us this clue at the end of the song. You can hear him saying, "I buried Paul." There's conflicting reports on that John actually buried him, or that's just where they buried him. You can kind of go with your own significant, however you want to read that one. The Beatles' self-titled album, known as the White Album, shows the signs of John and the rest of the group beginning to crack. In the song Glass Onion, John reveals the imposter in the band. "I told you the Walrus, about the Walrus and me, man. You know we were as close as can be, man. Well, here's another clue for you all. The Walrus was Paul." The song Revolution Number 9, you can hear John saying, "Turn me on, dead man," when played backwards. And most importantly, the song I'm So Tired, when played backward, reveals Paul's a dead man, miss him, miss him. This is where I really wish I could play stuff, because that is haunting.
Yeah, the actual audio is so loud if you've never heard it.
Yeah.
To like listen to it. I know it's like it's weird because it can be taken, like the audio can definitely be taken in two different ways.
Yeah.
But when you hear it, and
the ability for people to send those videos that it sounds like a cow and wow, my flower. Like, I formally believe when placed in front of somebody, you can make anyone believe that anything sounds like something else after repetitive.
Sure.
So those I take with a little bit and a grain of salt. Like some of them, maybe sure.
I mean, some of them are the actual lyrics, though. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that's the insanity in it. And we're believing that they're hiding little things inside of album covers, so it's not too much of a stretch to assume that they're putting things in backwards. And most of the stuff isn't like, oh, the lyric is this, and then if you play it backwards, it's that. It's stuff that's buried underneath a cacophony of noise, which I think is even cooler.
John or Paul came out and said that John wrote that line.
Yeah.
And he came out and said that he just did that to mess with people, which you can obviously lie. Why would he keep saying all this stuff about him being dead secretly, and why did no one stop him or be like, "What's a walrus?"
I'm so glad you would ask.
That's my next question.
The song I'm So Tired is John's true confession to a number of things. Like we stated before, John sold his soul to the devil for fame. However, keeping that fame became more of a task than actually being famous itself. In the 1960s, the Beatles actually had a different drummer. His name was Pete Best. The mystery surrounding Pete's departure from the band is shrouded in backstabbing and double-crossing. We know that tensions between him and the rest of the band grew significantly as the band got bigger. They got agents, they signed record deals, and the band grew into a real band. And as it began to find its iconic image of the Beatles' haircut and sissy suits, Pete refused to follow suit. So on screen right now, you can see Pete's haircut is very different from the other guys. Refusing...
He had the fawns.
Yeah.
Dude definitely had the fawns.
refusing to get the haircut. Then, one day, the Beatles were recording their first demos when the producer suggested to Paul and John they get rid of their drummer, stating that he wasn't as musically gifted as the rest of them. The producer made a joke about knowing a guy if they needed help. Being stupid kids, they took the joke seriously and actually planted an explosive in Pete's drum set. Luckily, it didn't fire, and Pete found it. He stormed into the office of Brian Epstein, the Beatles managers. It was that day that Pete was fired from the band.
An explosive.
Yeah, like a little, like hand grenade type thing. Not like, big hand grenade, but it was meant to, at least take his leg off. The argument between Pete and Epstein was heated. It was heard throughout the office. As Pete left that day, Epstein yelled down the hall after him, quote, "Be glad they didn't want you dead. It was on the table, Pete." Fast forward to August 29th, 1966. The Beatles have just concluded the biggest show they'd ever played and the end of their touring forever at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. Backstage waiting for them was Pete Best. His hate had been brewing for years. He threatened to tell the media about the attempt on his life unless the Beatles stopped touring. It was Pete's belief that if the Beatles were to stop touring, it would end their careers. Keep in mind, this is the 60s, and a hit job would have literally ended their career. Not knowing what to do, the band members agreed to his terms. Later that year, John Lennon was starring in a film, How I Won the War. While on set, Paul and George went to visit him. Over dinner, Paul admitted that he couldn't handle the pressure anymore and suggested they come clean about trying to kill Pete. You see, keeping the secret of almost killing your former bandmate wasn't the only skeleton in Paul's closet. He was attempting...
Is this a conspiracy? This is not a real thing, this grenade?
We'll get to everything at the end.
You told me to ask questions when I had them.
Yeah, but that cracks the story. We don't know. We don't know. Actually,
okay.
we really don't know. We know that...
Stop asking questions when I have them.
No. We know that Pete was fired from the band by Epstein. We know that he had alienated himself from the group, and John had threatened his life in public a number of times.
Okay.
And it is alleged that that there was a grenade in his drum.
Wait, did you say it was alleged or it was a legend?
Allegedly. Allegedly. Yeah. Allegedly.
Yeah. Okay. Heard chef.
You see, almost killing your former bandmate wasn't the only skeleton in McCartney's closet. He was attempting to hide his mistress from his then-wife, Jane Asher. It was rumored that Paul had gotten the mistress pregnant. So there's Paul and Jane Asher. After the dinner, George and John approached their tour manager and asked him to kill Paul. Fearing that he would tell the secret of almost killing Pete, they were unaware that the tour manager had also been approached by Jane Asher, who wanted Paul dead because she was afraid he would leave her for his pregnant mistress, Rita. After taking payments from both sides, he cut the brakes on Paul's car, leading to his death.
Who did?
The tour manager. It was said that the night that Paul died, he left the studio furious after having an argument with the band. The argument was over whether or not to come clean about the murder plot to kill Pete. Ringo gives us a hint in the song Don't Pass Me By. Ringo recants the night of Paul's death, waiting for Paul to return to the studio. The lyric: I listen for your footsteps coming up the drive. Listen for your footsteps, but they don't arrive. I'm sorry that I doubted you. I was so unfair. You were in a car crash and you lost your hair. 2 years later, Billy Shears, who's fake Paul McCartney, would break it off with Jane Asher. Drowning in her sorrows at a local pub, she meets Pete Best. Pete, even more enraged that the band's success continued after they stopped touring, tells Jane that the band attempted to kill him. Jane, frustrated after being cut out of the Beatles' fortune, confesses that they killed Paul. The two decide to blackmail the band. One night, while recording the White Album, Pete and Jane confront the band at Abbey Road Studios. They demand $200 million for their silence. The band agrees to the stipulation and starts the company Apple Corps as a way to pay them. The company goes bankrupt. It is filed under mismanagement, but it is really the blackmail money. So it's no surprise that on the album, we get the confession from both John and Ringo of killing Paul. It also gives credence to the tone of the album at points being dark and leery. After the White Album, they're stressed by the entire situation. The band dove deeper into its growing drug habit, producing the Yellow Submarine album and movie.
So good.
But this too does not go without signals. In the movie, there's a scene which we can clearly see two Pauls.
Of course.
The drug use, paranoia, and anxiety would culminate in what arguably is the greatest set of clues to this date. The album cover.
Paul's wife stays with fake Paul. Does she not notice? She knew, right? That was a question we just got.
She paid to have. She paid the tour manager to kill Paul, and so did John and George, because she was worried that he was going to leave her for Rita.
Wait, why did John and George pay the tour manager to kill Paul?
Because they're afraid that
he's going to talk of them trying to kill Best, the other drummer.
Yeah. We good?
Yeah, I did find a nice quote in 1974. It's on there, but someone said to Paul, "Look, Paul, you're dead." And he said, "Oh, I don't agree with that." So that's funny.
He also released a solo album later that's called Paul is Alive, and it's him standing right where he was on the Abbey Roads cover. Pretty cool.
He's so awesome. I like the fake guy, if that's who it is. I love that.
Controversial statement. I'm a Billy Shears guy.
Yeah,
I'm a Billy Shears guy.
Big Billy Shears guy.
Billy Shears bangs. Just dropping it.
Big Billy Shears guy.
Tell me that Kanye is going to pull Billy Shears up on stage, though. 4 or 5 seconds to nothing.
Billy Shears and Wings. Big fan of them.
Wings.
All right.
Anywho, Paul is dead clues.
Right. The key clues here are first the band. Right, so here's all your key clues on the front cover.
Naturally.
Oh, but to answer the question, yes, she knew that she was with the fake Paul.
Yeah, she was
so
okay.
She could get the money from the Beatles.
Right,
basically.
that's all she cared about.
Yes.
So let's first kind of look at the guys, right?
Look at the guys.
Let's look at the guys. I lost my spot.
Jesus.
Each member is dressed as a particular symbol. John, I guess we're going to start here. All right, so George is the Undertaker, or the Gravedigger, excuse me. John is the priest, or Jesus, whatever you want to call it. And Ringo is the Undertaker.
Wait, there's 2 Undertakers?
No, I'm sorry. George is a Gravedigger.
Sorry, that was not sensitive to gravediggers and undertakers.
Yeah.
As is the Twix commercial, they are separate occupations.
Yes, they are. Yeah. It's more of a working class guy. It's just the guy who kind of is the hand at the cemetery, whereas the Undertaker is the person who prepares the body and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And you can't really see it that well in this picture, but he's literally wearing a vest as well underneath. That's kind of why they make that reference there. But
okay.
So let's look at Paul. Paul stands out like a sore thumb. First off, he's got his left leg or his right leg in front when everyone else has their left leg in front. He's not wearing any shoes, and he has a cigarette in his hand, which is also called a death nail. So that's signifying that Paul is dead. We also have the Volkswagen Beetle behind Paul and George. Has 28 if as the license plate, saying that if Paul were alive, he would be 28. The final clue, you can kind of see these 2 red squares here in the background. The final clue is these guys. So one man dressed all in black stands on one side of the street looking longingly at a group of 3 men on the other side of the street dressed all in white. suggesting Paul is the one removed from the group.
Okay.
Also, the back of the album has a number of other clues. You can see a number 3 in those like weird little hole things, and it's so suggesting there's only 3 Beatles left. You can see a skull over here right next to the word Beatles, and then obviously it was rumored that Rita was wearing a blue dress the night Paul died. That is Rita running to get help after the accident.
Chipper says, wasn't Billy Shears sung about in the Sgt. Pepper's album?
Was. Basically, the way the song goes is they're introducing this new person into the band, and they sing Billy Shears, and then you have to turn the album over to finish the song. So it's kind of a weird way to like end that, and they reference it.
Yeah. Agreed.
The final album, Let It Be, the title is a message to Pete and Jane, signifying that they are walking away from the band forever, and a final note to their fans as Paul is the only one facing the camera. The group would break up after that, after Let It Be, leaving the world without the magical music that captivated it. That is, until 1967. An album entitled 347 EST was released.
Hey guys, it's just hitting me that he's dead. I'm gonna need a minute. I believe him.
Yeah, he's dead.
Damn, such a big Billy Shears guy.
William Campbell, what up?
I'm so upset.
An album entitled 347 EST was released by a band named Klaatu. The album was eerily similar to the band that the world had been mourning. A writer by the name of Steve Smith discovered the album and could not shake the uncanny similarities to the Beatles, so he decided to do some digging. He found that the album was produced by Capitol Records, which happened to be the distributor of the Beatles stateside. When the reporter called Capitol to ask for an interview with the group, he got a cryptic response. Capitol said, the band wasn't currently doing press, and they were, quote, a mystery group who wanted to be known for their music, not their personalities. Smith, taken aback by the use of the word mystery, kept digging deeper into the album. Besides the glaring similarities in sound, the lyrical content was all about a magical mystery tour. Soon, Steve would ink the column entitled, Could Klaatu Be the Beatles? Mystery.
What's this band called, sorry?
Klaatu. Could Klaatu be the Beatles? Mystery is a magical tour. The article caught like wildfire. The band started getting played on rock stations across the country, and the world began to believe the Beatles were back. Steve, now the world authority on Klaatu, kept digging. He got a hold of a man by the name of Frank Davis, who claimed to be the manager of the band. He spoke for the band regarding the article. He led credence, saying that yes, there were hidden messages in the music. In fact, there is a Morse code in the music. He also shed light on the group's name. Klaatu is a character from the 1951 sci-fi classic The Day the Earth Stood Still. This is significant because 2 years before that, Ringo released a solo album called Goodnight Venna, in which the album artwork is directly referencing The Day the Earth Stood Still. In the same interview, Frank Davis announced that the band's second album, Hope, was currently being recorded in London with the London Symphony. Just as the world began to have hope that the leaders of the free world would return, John Lennon's deal with the devil was set to expire. On December 8th, 1980, John Lennon was killed by Mark Chapman. Mark Chapman claimed he heard voices in his head telling him to kill John Lennon. Years later in prison, Chapman would ask for an exorcism. The preacher that performed it suggested that it is possible that up to 8 demons lived inside of Chapman. And thus ended the Beatles and the legacy.
Isn't that another Catcher in the Rye thing?
Yes.
And thus ended the Beatles and the legacy of the biggest rock band in the world.
And scene.
Yeah, I got so much.
Okay.
Chip says Peter Frampton played him in the movie, and Larry, what's up, man? Never heard this theory. Yeah, this stuff is pretty mind blowing. So,
So do you want me to tell you what's fake and what's real and what's so
No.
like? Okay, all right. You just
'Cause
want to ask some questions.
I guess the first thing that I have to understand is
Sure.
still to this day, no one's met the members of Klaatu.
Yeah. So Klaatu was exposed as a Canadian rock trio,
Yeah.
which to me is just even more of a node that it's them. Now they released music post John's death and post George's death.
But they could have had millions recorded.
Because Billy Shears is Canadian, one, right? So for them to say that they're a Canadian rock trio, that's nuts. Also, the fact that it's a trio, that would suggest that they were done with Billy Shears and it was just John, George, and Ringo. And you figure at that point, it's very easy for them to reproduce the sound that they made on their last 6 albums because who was Paul wasn't playing. So it was John or George playing the guitar parts anyway.
What else you got, Deke?
I mean, my big questions come around who is sitting there? So did they hire an agency? Like, who constructed in the history of conspiracy theories? Who sat down and said, all right, we want 3 guys over there, 1 guy over there on the album cover. That license plate, he would have been, 28 today. Make that license. Blue dress she was wearing. Like, what's the point? Why so, like, that's what when there are too much evidence on an album cover, that's when I start being like, all right, now it feels like we're stretching.
I mean, really the 2 major ones are Sgt. Pepper's, right? And that's the year he died, the year after he died, that comes out. And Abbey Roads, which is like at the peak of them in the middle of drugs, paranoia. They've already, like, that company has folded because they paid off their $200 million in blackmail money. I mean, they are really in their feels through the White Album and Abbey Roads. And then they kind of go away for a little bit, and then Let It Be just comes out.
The Abbey Road one is a little more, I find more believable. No, I don't know about believable, but I find that one makes more sense for the hints that they drop. Because if you go back and look at the Sgt. Pepper's photos, like, there's a lot of photos from that cover shoot.
Right.
And there's a lot of different shit that they were doing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I want to tip my cap, but I don't know if you want me to.
Josh, I have a good comment from Chipper.
I saw
he
that.
Said, so that means that there is some Canadian guy that is a knight and the Queen doesn't know about it.
Well, Chipper, that's where you're wrong, because actually the Beatles were created by the Illuminati to change the way that the youth thought about everything and introduce them to soft drugs so that they were easier to control. So
yeah, but
the
why
Queen is very aware.
He is not in the Illuminati.
The royal family runs the Illuminati.
So you're telling me that the Illuminati let, Harry marry an American and then just leave the family?
Yeah, they had to get rid of him somehow.
No,
well,
get out. That would have never happened.
Trust me,
how
Harry,
I know they're not Illuminati.
Trust me, Harry wasn't Illuminati. He wasn't meant for the.
He's
they
too pretty to be a lizard.
They would have
person.
Princess Diana.
They killed her.
They're going to.
I'm saying they would have done it to him.
Yeah,
Well,
that's why he got the hell out.
They figured it was easier for him to marry an American. That, like, his life is doomed either way.
Yeah.
Well, you do get 2 shotguns for every American you marry. It's hard to imagine if they wanted him dead, they were involved. Why would they put clues everywhere? That's the other thing. There's too many, like, blah, 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 blah. I honestly just think that, and maybe this is something, I don't know, the whole him with no shoes on, him with a cigarette, him facing the other way, I would say that he is by far across the train of who we consider the biggest Beatle. I mean, it's him or John Lennon, obviously.
The coolest Beatle.
He's Paul McCartney. He's different drum type.
Oh, he's Billy Shears.
Well, sorry. He's Billy Shears, guys.
He's different because he's not Paul McCartney. See, like the thing with me is like when you put those pictures side by side, like that's
I honestly can't. I need a picture of Billy Shear that's just Billy Shear.
So there's only one known picture of Billy Shear. And it's very low res, it's very grainy, and all it is a guy in glasses that kind of looks like Paul McCartney.
I do get the side-by-sides of Paul as a kid and Paul as an adult.
Even Paul from like 1959 and 1968.
Right. Well,
is a crazy difference.
And here's a couple of things, right? So Paul definitely was in a motorcycle accident and had to have reconstructive surgery on his face.
He was on a motorcycle with Rita.
No, this was
this is different incident.
Gotcha.
But he definitely had reconstructive surgery done. He looks completely different.
When was that though? What year was that?
70 something. Nah, maybe not even. It might have been like 67 or right around then. It was like White Album era. So like it's right in that, but it's like doesn't quite match up, but it's very close. All right, can I just tell you what's real and what's fake and what's scripted together?
Yeah, the grenade was horseshit.
Okay, so the grenade was apparently horseshit. Apparently the reason he was fired was that his mom was the one that refused to let him get the haircut.
I love my mother, but oh my God, if I was not known as a Beatle because I couldn't cut my hair.
Yeah. So that's how he got fired.
Happy Mother's Day.
We don't like the Rita thing is total like just like fan theory speculation.
I think that is the most attractive, like top 5 most attractive female names ever.
Rita.
Yeah, it's old, it's young, it's new. There's something about
it's young, it's new, it's old.
I know a Rita.
Something about a Rita.
Margarita, Quesarita. I mean, there's
so many awesome Rita things.
I mean, Boyd, you're right there with me. Welcome aboard, brother.
Obviously, I'm a big Rita guy.
There was a guy actually named William Shears Campbell. Who did win a Paul McCartney lookalike contest. That guy's real. That guy exists.
Did he go missing?
He did go missing in 1966.
That's the part that's interesting to me. Not so much the lookalike.
Right.
Never found?
Never found.
But it's interesting that he went missing and won a lookalike contest of Paul McCartney.
Right.
Now, that interesting?
Well,
it does look like him.
So there's some credence to that because it's believed that they actually used body doubles. Because of the amount of music they were putting out and the touring they were doing, it's believed that a number of their tours, photo shoots, music videos actually have body doubles in them. And that they were actually in the studio recording.
Do we know how to get in touch with Billy Shear's family? No, just curious. You don't know anything more about his disappearance?
No, it's totally just like this guy existed, he won this contest, and we never saw him again.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like, in all seriousness, a guy in Canada that won one contest. It's not going to be documented, especially back then. His every move, the way it is today. So, man.
I'm just going back through. There's some really interesting stuff where it's even suggested that the Beatles never actually existed, and that who we see as like John and Paul and Ringo and George, yes, are musicians, but they're only
a giant orchestrated.
Right. And so, because there's actually a really great interview where, like, John Lennon's, like, drunk or high or something, and he's, like, shitting on everybody else in the band, right? And somebody's like, Ringo, do you think you're the greatest drummer in the world? Like, the reporter. And he goes, it's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. Right?
Love that.
And then he's, like, talking, like, he always, like, criticized Paul's songwriting, right? Like, so it's kind of believed that they're actually, like, yes, the original foursome was a band in Liverpool, but after that first album, and they went that it was a record company that produced them, and that would also signify.
I feel like John Lennon was also kind of a prick, though.
Oh, he's
I
a
don't know,
total
man.
dickhead.
Like, we all have those friends that are so artsy that it's like, all right, man.
Yeah.
No, it's just a
get it.
burger. It's not a thing.
I get it. You moved to Australia and you make art sculptures in your aunt's fancy living room out of fucking aluminum pipes and spray paint. I have a friend that does that.
Okay.
Anywho, this kid I went to high school with. But I don't think that a record company would be smart and creative enough to do that.
Well, the Illuminati would be.
Maybe.
And here's the thing, though. If you have a team, like a team of 30 people, that's like, yo, we are like, not even like Illuminati aside. If you put a team of 30 people and you have 5 like people that are just dedicated to lyrics, 5 people just dedicated to music, like, you know what I mean? And you start breaking it down like that, and those people's job is to create something that is not really organic. And the reason we don't see it as organic is because we're being lied to. Whereas, I mean, it's an orchestra. The orchestra is putting together one piece of music, and it's a million people pulling all these different strings.
And Derek, if you look at the early Beatles stuff, before they stopped touring, a lot of it is very formulaic. It's same time signatures. It's very similar melodies. Like, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to just like go up a key, down a key kind of scenario. The Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So this one, if there was a change, it was then, right?
Yeah.
What's kind of interesting is there's other photos from that album too, and you see they try a bunch of different positions. At some point, like Paul's laying down in front of the drum kit, like that kind of stuff. But there's something that doesn't make the actual album cover that's stuck in my craw, and the guy with the cowboy hat behind George is actually holding a gun.
What album was this?
Sgt. Pepper's. So
okay.
If he's moved left or right even a little bit, there's a gun pointed at Paul. Also, all of those people are cardboard cutouts. So somebody thought about who they were putting in there, okay? A lot of those people are rumored Illuminati, and Crowley just being in there fucks with me. Now, the band very much...
You're sure that's Crowley?
It's definitely Crowley.
It's
okay.
And,
I'm just curious.
And John Lennon saying, like, that he did the deal with the devil, if you believe in that kind of stuff, that's probably the most truthful thing, because it's almost 20 years to the day that he dies. And then he's killed by a man who's possessed. Like, that's kind of wild, weird.
Do you
like,
think that the devil would mess up the dates, though? That's the part that, like, I don't want to be like, well, it wasn't on the right day, because the factors are big.
We're just assuming that the contract started on the 27th because that show, right? It could have been on the 8th. We're not sure.
That's a good point.
So the Sgt. Pepper's thing is kind of wild. Also, the fact, like, they printed that shit on the back of the album, and, like, there was a bunch of different versions of the back photo, too, where, like, Paul's facing the front sometimes, and they're in different order. But to use the one where George is pointing and then to line it up perfectly with that lyric is just kind of creepy.
And have Paul facing backwards.
Right.
Ooh, I see light.
Oh, the drum kit on the front of Sgt. Pepper's. It's 11/9, right? So that's how we use, like, dates. The British way would be to say the 9th of November.
The opposite.
However, if you went off of their date, it's September 11th. Which opens up its own insane can of worms.
Yeah.
John Lennon did 9/11.
Yeah.
And made
Or 9 plus 11 is 20 in 20 years till he dies.
There is actually a bridge on Rose Lane in Liverpool. There is actually a Strawberry Field Cemetery in Liverpool that is abandoned. And actually, this is kind of this is creepier and almost cooler. And I thought about putting it in there, but I didn't. So it's rumored that you can see John Lennon's
Legend.
ghost.
I keep wanting to say John Legend.
I know. John Lennon's ghost at Strawberry Fields Cemetery.
Can you? Because Yoko Ono says she lives with him in Idaho or something.
Yeah. So it's rumored that he's there with. Check. Was
Jordan
my
Love
mic down that whole time?
Tagovailoa in my dynasty league.
No,
I am
can't be.
so
You guys
sorry.
could be.
What the shit is happening?
Wait, what?
Jordan Love just got taken before Tua Tagovailoa in my dynasty league, and I am just sorry.
Are you drafting while doing this show?
It's a 24-hour clock, so I took Brandon Ayuk at the last pick in the first round, and now I have to wait until the third round now. So sorry, but
It's okay.
Jordan Love.
So you got like a couple weeks.
Hopefully 2 days. They don't use all the time.
So they don't use it.
Well,
Anywho,
why are they called the Beatles, Josh?
So the Beatles is kind of an interesting thing. Originally, the group was named
Clarence's trumpet.
No, it was like something like the Gravemen or something like that. And that they are called the Beatles.
The Quarrymen.
The Quarrymen, thank you.
Johnny and the Moondogs.
Is the Beatles is supposed to be an ode to Aleister Crowley, actually. And like the occult. So that's kind of an interesting little twist. We said the Strawberry Fields Ghost thing, right? Yep. Like the White Album
I
stuff.
want to go there.
Like the two things that really mess with me are if you've never heard Paul is a Dead Man, Miss Him, like go find that clip on YouTube. It's haunting.
Yeah, I'll check that out after this.
Listen to all the clips.
And then that lyric from Ringo about I waited for you to come back, but you died that night. Like that's gives me chills. We do know he John Lennon was actually in the movie. They did actually go meet him on set.
Larry wants us to do coronavirus conspiracy next.
God, dude, oh man, that's brutal to try to do coronavirus. And the relationship with his wife was very real. There was a thing after Let It Be where Paul wanted to get away from everybody. He was done. And he went and moved onto his farm in Scotland. And so, the media can't handle that he won't talk to anybody. So they sneak onto the farm, and they get all these photos and all this footage that is believed to be proof that that's not Paul McCartney. So he realizes that they've got this footage. He calls them back. He agrees to do an interview. And on the cover of the Time Life, when you hold it up to a light, there's a car ad behind it. And the car is going through Paul's body.
That one's a little far-fetched, but I like the story.
I mean, it's crazy. There's so much weird shit. The Abbey Road's cover, that's the only photo where Paul doesn't have shoes on. All the other photos, he has shoes on.
Different drum, man.
It's crazy.
You mean for that photo shoot for that?
Yeah,
album?
from that photo shoot for that album.
So we consider, especially with their change on face, no Billy Shear, the Beatles to be a front runner of culture and creativity.
Right.
I would not put it past them to be like, hey, Paul, let's go with the conspiracy and thank your dad. And them planting certain things to keep it alive. Because
that's another big theory.
We're talking about them now.
That's another big theory is that they did that they fed into it and we're just like, well, maybe it'll sell more records if people think this shit.
Yeah. And it did. Once the articles got written that they believed that Paul was dead, the Beatles actually post Let It Be saw an album spike, and people thought it was, oh, we're mad that everyone's gone. But that's also when the conspiracy theories started.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a wild thing. And like,
I just saw John Lennon walk down your steps. It was super creepy.
I know, it was crazy, right? What up, John? Also, there's apparently, and this kind of ties into I have to look at the name of this stupid band. Clau or whatever. Klaatu.
Cthulhu.
Klaatu is such a wild, like, go listen to that. It sounds just like fucking the Beatles. Like, you're like, okay, this is unreleased
if
Beatles
I asked
music.
you, what's the band nowadays? Van Helsing.
Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Van Helsing. Yes, Van Helsing. That's what it is.
I knew what I meant though. But
Yes.
Greta Van Helsing.
I mean, obviously it would be a little different, but if you put that next to the actual high-pitched rock stars,
It's close.
and you could tell me like obviously Greta Van Fleet works because it's, we miss the rock stars and they're very edgy and it's cool like that. But like if you
they
said,
ripped off
hey,
a
I
bunch
need you
of
guys
songs.
to sound like band, I guarantee they would be able to do it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. So Klaatu comes out right at like the end of the 70s.
Cthulhu.
But there's also this rumor, and I believe this is true just because that's how music works, is that there's a vault of unreleased Beatles songs that they've been saving in case they went broke.
I believe that.
So is it too much of a stretch to imagine that the American distribution side of the Beatles were to maybe take one of them albums and just shimmy it out there?
No, I believe it.
Without any legal repercussions
They own the rights.
to all of them?
Well, there was also that big, I don't know about the rights, but
Stateside.
I don't know, wasn't it the Beatles that kept all their music off of Apple because of Apple?
Yeah.
So wouldn't the Beatles own the right to the music?
Maybe
So-
they didn't then before, like, maybe like at that current time they didn't.
Oh, maybe they bought it back like Marvel. Okay.
They might not have owned it, and then when they got all this money from their wild success, they were like, well, yeah, we want those back.
It's also believed that actually that Klaatu was only released in the States. So that
Wait,
Canada.
not Canada, even though they were a Canadian rock trio.
Then how'd they
Right.
get to the Liverpool Orchestra?
right. Which is like, okay, what the fuck?
That is a little shady.
Right.
It almost sounds like someone said, how do we get money off the end of the Beatles?
Yeah.
Let's make a band and tell them to sound like the Beatles. And at worst, these kids will be drunk talking about us in 2020.
Right. It's cool, and I think just further proves that the Beatles are the biggest thing ever in music because there's so much shit, right? Like there's no rumor like this about Nickelback. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Rick Kroger is a god. You
Right.
stop that.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what I mean. What like
Kroger died.
his wife died. Avril Lavigne's dead, got replaced.
Yeah, but he died too in the filming of that music video for Spider-Man.
Oh, he died?
Hero. They
Really?
replaced him too. Yeah, big theory.
I'm pretty sure Spider-Man saved him.
No, that was CGI.
Only a hero can save us.
Yeah.
Watch as they all stand and wait.
What was the other band that had? I mean, I know there's a bunch. There was another there's a couple other big music conspiracies. I mean,
There's the Eminem one.
the Young Money sold their soul one,
Oh yeah.
but that was on like
That's a
Crazy
goof.
Pasta. I don't believe
That's
that.
a goofy one.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't really believe any the Avril Lavigne and Eminem like replacement with the whole like cloning and replacing.
that's where you lose me.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, there's definitely... So Zeppelin's got some crazy shit behind them. First off, it's believed that the first 4 Zeppelin albums were actually stolen music.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so different post the first 4 Zeppelin albums. Also,
imagine working your ass off to change your sound the way you want after years of making your fans love you, and someone go, "Yo, everyone in the band died, and you guys are changing the sound." It's like, what?
yeah,
Like, imagine being in the Beatles room when all of this is fake, and there's like, and they're just sitting there talking, and the person comes in and goes, "Hey, Paul, you're dead." He's like, "Oh, don't know about that."
yeah.
Like, they're all just like, "Wow, dude, we are bigger than I thought we were."
Yep.
Let's run with that.
Also, Stairway to Heaven was originally written as a Yardbird song. Written as a Yardbird song.
Yardbird?
Yep. That was the band Jimmy Page was in before Led Zeppelin.
Whoa.
I believe musicians take songs with them and stuff, though.
Oh, sure.
Got to.
It's just it's kind of awesome. Like there's also the conspiracy that the Beatles, everyone's dead but Paul.
That I don't believe.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't like that one.
Big fan of Ringo and Billy Shears, so I don't know if they're both dead.
I
Yeah,
don't know
so
how I feel about that one.
I don't
So,
know.
yeah.
That was good. That was really good.
thanks. That was a lot of it was taking different parts and then like, okay, I have all these really cool stories. How do I make them line up?
It'd be so cool to be Paul McCartney.
So
Billy Shears.
yeah,
It would be cool to be Billy Shears.
yeah,
You mean?
it'd be cool to be Billy Shears.
Yeah, it'd be cool to be all of them.
I saw Billy Shears in person. I told you guys about that.
Mm-hmm.
Behind Josh.
Paul McCartney.
And he waved at you.
He did wave
Oh
at
yeah,
me
you did tell us that story.
in his Jaguar convertible.
He's such a beast.
He is Billy Shears, man. What a legend.
Love it.
So,
That was a good show, Josh. You're right. It did take the exact time frame that we allotted, so I appreciate you. But that was really good.
yeah, thanks, man. I was like bent over like a demon today, like just like cracking through stuff and like had that weird like hair standing up on your neck feeling all day because it just all kept creeping me out. It was awesome. It was a good day, way to spend a Monday.
Love it.
It was a good Monday to do it too, because it was poopy Monday.
Oh, it was awesome. It was raining and like the wind would blow a little bit. It was good. I was creeping myself out all day.
All right, gentlemen.
We did it.
We did it. A
We
whole
did it.
show.
We did. We should be proud.
We should.
I'm
Good
happy.
job, Boyd.
We did it, guys.
Make sure to check Two Beers Deep out on Thursday as well as the Wrestling League on Friday. Thank you.
Ooh.
Chipper says good show, boys.
Good show. I will be there for the Wrestling League this Friday.
Woo!
Okay, you will.
Did you watch
really
Money in the
just-
Bank?
I thought
No,
you
I
were just-
didn't.
All right, watch Money in the Bank.
I watch
All right.
Money in the Bank.
Thank you, Chipper. Love you. All
Love
right.
you,
Thank you
Chipper.
guys all for watching.
Say goodnight, Derek.
Good night, Derek.
Gang.